John.
Hi, John. How do you do?
Very well, thanks. Bob Edelman?
Yeah, that's me.
How are you, Bob?
All right, it's nice to get to talk to you. I'm sorry I ran a few minutes late.
It's all right.
Misplaced the phone number of the studio.
No sweat.
I think the place I'd like to start is the work you're doing right now in the studio. You're working on some music for the Olympics.
Yes, I was asked by ABC to be a commentator at the Winter Olympics in Sarajevo.
Oh, no kidding.
Sort of a man on the street doing color and interviews, things like that. And also if I was interested to write a song for the Olympics that they could use. And so I worked on it and have a pretty good song, I think. And I'm pleased to report they're pretty excited about it now. So, real great.
What is it called?
It's called The Gold and Beyond.
Oh, neat. Well, is there obviously it's well, not obviously, but can you tell me a little bit about it? I'm sorry.
Well, what I'm trying to address in the song is that the Olympics to me is more than just winning gold medals or how many medals your country wins. That what it is originally it was something to use for, how can I say it, human potential, to discover human potential, and it's the best of the best of the best all over the world. And I think that being there, being a representative of your country, whatever you are, and more than that, being a representative of the human family, is really quite an honor in itself. And then it's sort of like the icing on the cake when you win a gold medal. And I know that there's just in my mind there's something more than winning.
Mm-hmm.
It's participating, it's doing your best, it's being one of the best in the world, and it's being part of something that, even in these turbulent times, here's an opportunity where people from all over the world, of all colors, all races, all religions and political factions, come together in competition, yet in a peaceful environment. So there's more going on there than perhaps meets the eye, and I'd like to draw that out, and that's what I tried to allude to in my song.
Have you attended the Olympics before?
No, this will be a first for me.
Oh, is that right? Oh, you must be pretty excited.
Yeah, I am, as a matter of fact.
Have you got? It struck me as interesting when Bonnie told me that you were doing that for the Olympics, and of course you're coming down here. The concert here in St. Petersburg next week is tied into the big Super Bowl celebration. Do you have a very big interest in sports in general?
Well, I do. Sports is one of those things that brings people together. It gives us an opportunity to really work together in ways that we can't seem to out in the rest of the world. And a competition, I think, is very valuable. I think it's being up against somebody else that you can really push yourself to beyond the limits that you might ordinarily expect of yourself. And I think it's a real good thing. And for myself, I'm athletic. I love skiing. I love hiking in the mountains. I love playing golf and tennis and things like that. And so I relate to all of that.
Oh, very good. You sound like you got a bit of a cold.
I have this aspen crud is called. It starts happening to people in the fall, and the darn thing can last, for weeks. I've had it about 5 weeks now. I just can't. I feel great. All of it's gone. The first week you really feel pretty terrible. Now all I have is just this little tickle of a cough.
Are you're still living in Aspen?
Yes.
Okay. I did a lot of the last week or so. I've been catching up on my my wealth of information and knowledge about the life and career of John Denver, and I thought it sounds kind of silly in a sense, but I thought I'd read something that you had been living out of New York or something for a while.
No, that's not true. During the process of Annie's and my divorce over the last couple of years, for a time I had a little house, a little cabin on a river on the east side of town in Aspen.
Mm.
But what I really tried to do over the last couple of years is to take advantage of the situation of not being in my home, and while all of this was being worked out, to go out and work around the world. And in the last year, I've performed in some 15 countries around the world.
Huh.
And spent a lot of time on the road working. So
is the work therapeutic in the sense of overcoming something as personal?
Oh, I think so. It's good to have something to focus on, to put your time and energy into when you're going through something like that. And I think it was very valuable for me, and I think it was valuable to not be around Annie while we were going through all of this with one another, except on those occasions when we really wanted to be together to talk about something, to work something out. I think it was good for both of us.
Marriage and a divorce, of course, is a very personal and a private thing, and I don't want to invade on that. What I am curious along that line, and I don't intend to pursue this very far, but yours was a very public marriage. Annie had appeared on at least one album jacket that I'm familiar with, and you spoke of her constantly. Annie's song, of course. Did all that public familiarity with your marriage, did that make it that much harder to go through the marriage and then also to wind up the way it wound up?
Well, no, I don't think that any of the things you mentioned were a problem during the course of our marriage. And the only difficulty in the process of our separating and getting divorced was people's interest in it. And as you say, it's a private thing, and to the degree that Annie and I were able to sustain that privacy and really talk with one another and not have a bunch of other things start coming in because of things popping up in the media or whatever, I think it really it was helpful the way we handled that in regard to the way it's all worked out, and like, I love Annie. I think she's a wonderful woman. She meant an awful lot to me in my life. It still means something to me, and I'm really happy I can say at this point, after all of this, that our relationship is on excellent footing. And we had a family Christmas Eve, and it was as warm and wonderful as you could possibly imagine. It was thrilling to me. I feel really, really complete and good, both with Annie and with myself in this whole situation. And I'm sure that the thing that we were both going for in taking the steps we did has been achieved, and we really have the opportunity to do the things that we want in a way where we can be mutually supportive, as opposed to what it was sort of getting to be a drag or a weight on one another.
Very good. You have 2 children?
We have 2 children, yes.
Zachary must be about 10 by now.
He'll be 10 in May.
What? You have another son?
No, Anna
sure.
Kate is my daughter, and she
How old is she?
had her 7th birthday.
Oh, very good. I was just curious, just following up. I was a little interested. I'd like to. I think I'd like to talk to you about your music. Well, we touched on that, and I don't want to go real far on that. But the music, you've had so many hugely successful songs. I mean, I started taking inventory last night, and the list gets rather lengthy. And they're all of a certain group of songs, a certain very. Again, I guess the word personal comes up a lot. A lot of things that have to do with the, I guess your views on the environment and the feelings in Colorado and such. Are you continuing in that direction? There's been a, It's About Time had a song on it with Rita Marley and the Wailers, and the duet with Emmylou Harris.
Yep.
Are you coming around? Are you going? How do you see yourself going musically?
Well, I hope that I'm growing musically and expanding out of the experience that I've had, the opportunity to work with people like Emmylou and the Wailers. I feel that that's going on. And yet I think the thrust of my music, the thing that you allude to, is still the same. I have not been one to sit down and try and write a hit record. That's not what music is to me. It's an opportunity to communicate and to share with people the things that are important to me and the things that mean something to me, the things that affect me, my observations about the world we live in. And even on those songs that you mentioned, the one with Emmylou is a totally imaginative story, but it comes out of my experience of meeting people up in the Bitterroot Valley in Montana, seeing the way they live, spending some time up there, and that's the kind of people they are. The World Game is a very, very strong personal conviction that was articulated for me by my friend Bucky Fuller, whose concept the World Game is. And I just really wanted to write a song to address that, and when I did, it seemed appropriate. You know, the song came out as a reggae song, and I think it was very fortunate to be able to get the Wailers in the studio to sing it with me.
You know, I was very fond of a song of yours recently that didn't become as big a pop hit as some before it, but personally, it was the one I liked a lot, was Shanghai Breezes.
Oh, thank you.
I really liked that song.
Again, you know, it's a very personal song in a sense, and it came out of being over in China, and Annie and my family being back here, and it was on the occasion of our 14th anniversary, as a matter of fact, the day that I wrote that song.
Oh. Did you write that there or here?
In China.
Oh, you did. Oh, good. What was China like? That must have been
Well, China is a fascinating place. You know, the first thing that strikes you is that everything you see there is older than our country. And then it goes back much, much farther than that. There's a lot of people. They're beautiful people, very open, very quick to smile, and their culture, their heritage is so extraordinarily different from ours that it really, you know, it just draws on you in a sense. Everywhere you turn is things that you could hardly imagine, much less thought you'd ever see or might have seen before. And I really fell in love with the Chinese people. I had the chance to visit most of the major cities in China, and I got into Tibet, and I really fell in love with those people and have a great admiration for the circumstances of their life and how well they're handling it, and you know, a sensitivity to the problems they have there, which are not unlike problems everywhere else in the world.
Did you get to perform before Chinese audiences?
I didn't. I sang a couple of places, but not a set-up performance or anything. And Sunday, the premier of China is now in the United States, as you know, and he's going to be in New York on Sunday, and I've been invited to attend a lunch to sing for he and his delegation at Mayor Koch's office in New York.
Mayor Koch. I just saw him on the rerun of Saturday Night Live a few nights ago. What a character. You've gotten to visit quite a number of interesting places, I imagine.
Yes.
Is there, outside of China, is there any one that left an impression on you because it was greater or less than what you had expected when you got there?
Well, I think you know, I love to travel, and I love meeting people, and I really find things that are of interest to me everywhere I go in the world. India is incredibly interesting to me just because of its age and its focus, in a sense, its spiritual focus in many ways, and the teachers who are there. Australia and New Zealand are my favorite places. The only place I can imagine living other than the United States would be Australia or New Zealand. I really like those countries. I like the people there. They really, there's a lot there that draws me. I went to Scotland for the first time back in November. I had a few days to drive around Scotland, and it is a beautiful country, you know, wonderful people there. But I guess there's no place as extraordinarily different and far away as I felt in China, and even more so in Tibet, I guess.
Okay. Have your you've had very outspoken views on a number of I guess the term you used before, human potential, and in terms of that, and I guess that probably comes from knowing Bucky Fuller. I believe you were affiliated with, or maybe not affiliated, but were involved with Werner Erhard at some time, or maybe still are.
Werner's a dear friend of mine. I was an S graduate and served on the S Advisory Board, and now work with Werner on the board of directors of the Hunger Project.
Ah, okay.
And as you suggest, Bucky Fuller was a great inspiration to me in my life and a dear friend. People like Jacques Cousteau. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with some pretty wonderful people and to meet some pretty extraordinary people, and they all have left their mark on me in a sense.
It's interesting in that you've transcended not only working with a lot of legendary people in show business, but in more political and social fields as well. I found that fascinating.
You know, it's kind of fascinating fascinating to me too. The circumstances that I find myself in are really quite extraordinary and of great interest to me, and especially given my inclinations, my interests, and the things that I would like to work with, the things that I'd like to do in the world. I find myself in a situation which allows me some incredible opportunities, like this thing of going over and being a commentator at the Olympics. Now, I'm certainly not capable of doing the color or articulating really responsibly and intelligently the actions of the athletes in the different events that they have, but to be asked to go interview people on the street, to talk about Yugoslavia and Sarajevo and its history, to interview athletes and their parents and tourists who come there, that seems to me to be an awfully nice opportunity, and especially if I can bring this thing out that I was talking about earlier in my song. It's a desperate time that we live in. The world is in real trouble in many ways, and to the degree that some of the attention that seems to be so much on aspects of life that have us against one another, to the degree that that can be turned around to drawing out or focusing on things that really show us as a family of humankind, and that we really have a lot more that draws us together than that separates us, it seems to me that that's a wonderful opportunity and could be very valuable to the condition of the world.
Do you find that your environmental type of concerns in this country people are aware of them when you go overseas? And it seemed like here. I'll give you the example I was thinking of. When I would sit down and read some of the stories that have been written about you over the last couple of years, maybe they were written because you had a TV special coming up, or maybe there was a new record released, or they always came around to, I guess, maybe the Windstar Project or something else. More recently, I think there was some on your feelings on nuclear freeze. Do those kind of things come out for discussion when you go overseas, or is that limited to here?
Nope, they do even more so overseas. It seems to be the thing that both my interest and my involvement and perhaps the credibility that I have sustained or created for myself in these other countries, that's the first thing that I suppose sets me apart from the other artists who come to visit them. And so they always ask me about these things, and when they don't, I get it into the conversation. I try to handle my business intelligently, and if I have an album or a television show to create some interest in, let people know that it's coming on or coming out, I do that. But I also always try to take advantage of those opportunities to discuss the things that I'm really concerned about that are a little bit more important than a television show.
That's as good a way to lead in as any. What are your non-show business priorities right now?
Well, the first thing is nuclear disarmament, and doing anything and everything that I can or that can be done to create really a peaceful world. And I have some specific ideas on that and approaches to that, which has to do with the things that I think are on most people's minds. I think to a large degree, I don't know if you saw this television show, The Day After.
Oh, yeah.
Ago. I didn't see that, but I saw the discussion afterwards. Mm-hmm. Did you happen to catch that?
I saw the discussion afterwards, and I covered a seminar. I work for the St. Pete. Well, I'm doing this for the St. Pete Times. I covered two seminars that a local freeze group did. The first was called The Day After the Day After. They had 250 people pack into a little church for that.
Yeah.
And then this past week they did a seminar on parenting in the nuclear age, which was a second follow-up on that.
That's great. Great. Well, so the thing about that discussion to me is that it was the most depressing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think it exemplified the state of mind of most people in regard to this issue. It's like there was not a positive thing said in that whole hour-long discussion. The most that came out of it is that it's something that we're living with right now, and it's not going to get any better for at least 2 decades, and we have to stay in this game the way it is. Nobody looked at this as having, this whole thing that's going on in the world in regard to nuclear arms as an opportunity. Nobody looked at it as having any purpose, and nobody had any answers as the way to start moving out of it. And that was just terribly frustrating to me because I think there are very specific steps that you can take. You know, it's like, I don't think a nuclear freeze is going to happen just like that. But I think that there are some things that we could start working on, the result of which would be a nuclear freeze. And then if we stayed with them, and if they did in fact work, the end result would be in 10 or 15 years getting rid of all the nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, you know, it would it would just be the common sense result of focusing on other things. You know, it's like my friend Bucky Fuller talked about livingry as opposed to weaponry.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that have to do with economics. There are things that have to do with education. There are things that have to do with ending hunger in the world. There are things that have to do with stretching ourselves out a little bit further in science and technology and really doing something in space, all of which could be of great value in ridding the threat of nuclear war on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that again, it seems that the environment of thinking in this country and to a large degree around the world, the frame of mind of the people generally seems to be unaware of these things, and there aren't very many people articulating them. So I want to talk about that stuff. I want to point out some different directions.
Are you working in that direction at all musically?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's what the World Game is about. That's what it's about. Time is about.
You're right. A lot of this is, well, all of this comes down to politics, whether it be American politics, Soviet politics, or international politics. And I was interested to note that about 6 years ago, there was a report, and you may want to just tell me that it was way off base, but there was a report that you had considered running for some type of a major political office. And in 1980, there was another report where you said you were just totally, you were pretty disgusted with politics because it had gotten so ludicrous.
So both of those are true. There was a time a ways back where I took a real hard look at whether or not there was a better way to work toward some of the goals that I have personally and what I see is available for society in general. If it would be more effective to work in politics. And I spent a little bit of time in Washington, met some of those folks. And what I found out, you know, first of all, I was really impressed by the people who were there. You know, they really would like to serve our country and our people, and they would like to serve the world. And then somehow there's something about the system back there that starts breaking people down, and it gets to be very, very difficult to carry on with the same kind of enthusiasm and positivity that people come to Washington with, to sustain that in light of the way things work back there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard job. And I really began to realize that, one, neither my training nor my personal inclinations really gave much support to my doing that kind of work. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I'm a good enough man or the right kind of man to work in those offices back there. And I began to feel quite strongly that I have a better opportunity to work for the things that I believe in and the things that I would like to see come about in our world by being a singer and being out of politics than I could by holding some sort of office.
Could you see maybe 20 years down the line turning around on that and maybe taking a shot at it?
Well,
or, you know what I'm saying? Just, I mean, that's hypothetical, but just curious.
I'll tell you what it is for me, Bob, is I have a real commitment in my life toward doing whatever I can for the benefit of all of the people of this planet, for the planet itself, for improving the quality of life, and for creating a peaceful world without the threat of nuclear weapons hanging over its head, and to be sure that our children and their children always have wilderness to play in and whales to enjoy watching and swimming with. And so whatever it takes, whatever is made available to me, whatever I'm called upon to do, I'm willing to do that. And I've set my life up now, especially over the last few years within the process of this whole situation with Annie, quite frankly, to be totally available to whatever I can do that is needed. And right now that reads to me as being a singer and doing things that come out of my music and come out of the training that I've had as an entertainer and the thing that I most enjoy doing, which is what I'm going to do this coming Saturday in St. Petersburg.
There you go.
And it's the same thing that I've done in 15 countries around the world, and I think that it has an impact and is valuable. And if that should change, I'm sure it'll show itself. And again, whatever I'm called upon to do, whatever form it takes, doesn't make much difference to me.
Very good. While you were talking, I suddenly I had a visual image of the Cousteau special you did. You mentioned the whales.
Yeah.
And I just remember what a beautiful special that was. That just came off the top of my head. There are a couple short things I wanted to ask you about. Less shaking, but I think things of more general interest, if you wouldn't mind. Thank God I'm a Country Boy. It's been real big, evidently, with the Baltimore Orioles fans of recent times. And you put in an appearance last October at one of their games?
Yeah.
Well, can you tell me about that?
Well, they had, about 9 years ago, I guess, is when that song came out. It was a big hit record. That got to be the Baltimore Orioles theme song. They played it every game of the seventh inning stretch. And there was, some little to do about it back then. And I had forgotten about it, quite honestly. And this past April, I was shocked to find out that they were still using the song. And what happened is that they came back for the first game of the season this last spring, and tried to play a different song. And the fans went crazy and would not sit down or shut up until they played Thank God I'm a Country Boy. So at that time, they called me to see if I'd come down and sing it for them, and I told them I couldn't do that. I was just in the process of leaving for Australia for a concert tour. Mm-hmm. And I said that if you guys make it to the series, give me a call. I'll come sing it for you. So they did, and they called me, and I went and sang it for them, and also had the privilege of singing the Star Spangled Banner before the game.
That's pretty interesting. I was very interested to note that you had been named Poet Laureate of Colorado. Is that correct? And you would receive the Carl Sandburg Award for poetry. Do those kind of honors mean more because they recognize your strictly writing ability as opposed to music or singing or anything else? Do they mean as much or maybe more in some senses than winning a Grammy? Or I don't know how much awards in general mean to you, but...
Well, awards in general are...
I'm thinking from a writing... I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're a very nice acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. And certainly I enjoy those awards that I've been given, and I enjoy the symbols of my success in the recording business. But that's not what I'm doing it for.
Right. Well, I was thinking from a writing perspective, the Sandburg and the Poet Laureate were very impressive. I don't write music or songs or anything, but just from a writing perspective, they were very impressive to read of. You've had an ongoing relationship with the Muppets over the years, and I wondered, what the actual lowdown on you and the pig is.
Well, that's actually quite personal. Really, I'm not free to discuss that without Miss Piggy around.
I see. How have your general experiences with the Muppets gone? You've done quite a bit with them.
Of the whole gang who's behind the Muppets, a great admirer of Jim Henson and Frank Oz especially. Mm-hmm. This thing that they created is a wonderful, magical thing to me that allows you to do a lot of things, that if children said some of the things that they say, you wouldn't pay any attention to them. And if an adult came up and said some of the things, you might get real offended. And somehow they found a way to address a lot of things and do a lot of things that, and you listen and you take it seriously, and also at the same time not too seriously. And they can get away with a lot, and they do so in a wonderfully entertaining manner. And so the first time I had the chance to work with the Muppets was over in England on their regular show, and we had a great time together, and it was my suggestion that we do a Christmas special together, which is the one that's been shown quite a number of times, and to do an album with it. Mm-hmm. And then we had such a wonderful time on that we looked for an opportunity to do something together again, and that was the Rocky Mountain
Holiday
that we did last year.
Oh, very good. Do you have any...
They're great. I just think they're truly marvelous people, entertaining, witty, intelligent, and it's a real pleasure to work with them.
You did another TV special that I guess is particularly noteworthy, especially this coming weekend. That was with Mr. Sinatra. This weekend, you guys will be playing right across the bay from each other.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Yeah, it's...
What are his shows?
He's doing a show at 4:30 and at 9 o'clock, same day you are.
Uh-huh.
And I guess yours is starting off at 8.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. How did the original the TV? How did the TV special come together? How did you come to be working with Frank Sinatra?
We had worked together up at Lake Tahoe at Harrah's Club in Lake Tahoe, which came out of their connections with he and I, and with Jerry Weintraub, who at the time was managing me and promoting both Frank and myself. And in the time that we spent together, we started to develop a friendship. And so when this idea came up of doing a television show together, Frank was for it, and it was one of the biggest thrills of my life to work with him.
It was quite a show. I remember it.
He's really a nice man. I hear all kind of stories about Frank Sinatra, and certainly he's a legend in his own time, I guess, in many respects. And he has always, every time that I've seen him, been a real gentleman and one of the most thoughtful men that I know. My birthday was here a few weeks ago, and he called me up just to say happy birthday and
that was
regards.
New Year's Day?
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, I'm sorry. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's not as big coming for me as Mr. Sinatra, but happy birthday.
Anybody is pretty nice.
There you
I thought
go.
it was especially thoughtful of someone who's obviously as busy and as much going on as he does to one, remember, and to take the time to give me a call. And that's just an example of the kind of man he is.
Yeah. I guess your first acting was in a McCloud episode almost 10 years ago, I guess. I read somewhere you were making a new TV movie.
Well, I was going to, and that project has been slowed down somewhat.
Oh. Will that, do you expect that'll still come off at some point?
I don't know. I'd sure like it to. It's a great script, and I'd love to do it, and I'd love to do any more acting that I can. I'd love to do a film.
What were you going to be strictly acting in this, or?
Yes, this is a thing called The Cowboy and the Lady.
Right.
And
is that at all in the kind of vein as the two Gambler movies that Kenny Rogers did?
No, not at all.
Okay. Just curious.
Rodeo Cowboy, and the lady was a Russian ballerina.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's a pretty great idea.
There's something else I wanted to ask you here. I also read that you had been quite a Hank Williams fan.
That's right.
Or still are, I imagine.
Still are, yeah.
Have you ever considered... Still am. You are, and I am. Or, never mind. Have you given any thought at any time to recording any of his material?
I have. I did a song with Michael Murphy once on one of his albums, and there's a lot of Hank's material that I'd like to do, and someday, sooner or later, I will record some of his songs.
Very good. We've got a photographer who, I don't know how, but she's gonna be, I guess, taking a picture at the show Saturday. Somehow she seemed to know that you were coming here before anyone else in town did. She's such a huge fan. She wanted me to ask you a question. She's wondering if, when you're not working, when you're not entertaining or following up on something of a political interest to yourself, what you like to do to relax or have a good time?
Mostly I like to be either at home or if I'm not able to be at home or around home, to be outdoors someplace, be out in the country. I really enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy the wilderness. I enjoy fishing and things like that. I enjoy flying a lot. That's one of my favorites.
Are you a pilot?
I am a pilot. I have over 2,000 hours in pilot in command of Learjet. Fly my own plane. I have a open cockpit biplane that I fly, does acrobatics and stuff. I really enjoy that a great deal.
Oh. Are you still real active in photography?
Yes, actually I've not been so active the last year or so. It seems like I've been too busy everywhere that I've gone to be able to get away and get into pictures, but I'm taking my cameras over to the Olympics and hope to take a lot of photographs there.
I guess you'll have a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
I guess I can wind up here. I know we're probably waiting to get into the studio. Do you remember what your greatest professional moment was, and on the flip side of that, what your most disappointing moment has been?
Well, let's see. That's a pretty tough question.
It's the kind of question that Ma Bell likes because it usually gets her an extra minute or two while somebody thinks about answering it.
Yeah, right. So, there've been so many things that I really, really enjoyed that were very special to me. Some of which you mentioned. Working with some of the people that you named, like Mr. Sinatra and Danny Kaye. Working with George Burns and Oh God was a great thrill for me. And it's hard to pick one particular moment out.
God, that was a good movie. It was such a disappointment when they did the sequel.
Yeah.
But the first movie was so funny. I'm sorry.
I'd love to do another one if I wish I could find one that good. So that I don't.
Well, maybe if you think back. Now you wrote "Leaving on a Jet Plane" that Peter, Paul, and Mary did. Maybe if you think back to the early part of your career when you were just getting started, was there something you remember that just made your whole day, maybe a whole week? That just something clicked. The first time something really clicked.
Well, I think that the first time I heard one of my songs on the radio was a pretty exciting moment. I had to pull over and stop.
Do you remember the song?
It was "Follow Me," which was a single off the second album that I did.
Oh.
And the first time, when Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded for Baby, and when I heard when "Leaving on a Jet Plane" became such a big hit, that was pretty great. And when I had, I'll tell you a great moment.
Okay.
When Annie and I adopted Zachary, our son, the day that we went to pick him up from the adoption agency in Minneapolis, Minnesota, we were driving there, and they played Annie's song on the radio, and it was the #1 song in the country.
Okay.
They have these baby books to fill out when your child is born. You can put the front page of the newspaper, the headline of the newspaper in there, and what the popular song was, and what the popular, on and on and on. And the popular song, the #1 song in the country, the week that we got our little boy, was Annie's song. And I think that hearing that song on the way to pick up our first child, and having it be this love song that I'd written for her, and having it be the most popular song in the country at that time, that's pretty hard to top.
Well, that sounds like a very nice kind of moment. I hate to follow it up by asking what the saddest or most disappointing, let's say, professional moment might have been.
Well, let me think.
Maybe a project that just you had your heart set on that didn't go through. I don't know.
I think that the saddest thing in my career is something that's going on now that I am not at liberty to discuss.
Okay.
Sorry, Val.
That's all right. That's all right. It sometimes those things. That's understandable. I just want to be sure your daughter's name. I wonder if you could tell it to me again. Let me spell it out. A-N-N-A.
And Kate, 2 words.
Okay. Is she adopted?
She is, yes.
Okay. Well, gosh, I appreciate you having taken so much time out for me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I look forward to singing down in St. Petersburg. I've not performed there before, and I'm looking forward to that. And I haven't done a concert in a while, so I'm excited to go sing and share with people what I've been doing around the world the past year. And and I'm pretty excited to see the Super Bowl.
Ah, you're going to get to go.
You bet.
Ah, well, wait a minute. I thought you said you have a, or is that this Sunday you're going to meet the Chinese
Yes.
premiere? Ah, very good. Well, I envy you getting to go see it. I won't even be able to go see it on TV. I have to cover another concert the next night.
Oh.
It's going to be quite a downer too after seeing you, and I'm going to see Mr. Sinatra in the afternoon before your show. I've got to go cover Van Halen the night of the Super Bowl. Figure that one out.
It's a hard life.
It is, I tell you. John, I really enjoyed talking to you.
All right, and we'll see you down there. Come back and say hello, all right?
I'd like that. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.